How, why, doesn't really matter now. What does matter is that as of this moment, we are at war.
Ow! Indeed, we are. We're at war. It's World War C for COVID, and I'm copywriting it. Anyway, it's interesting to see how various world leaders are responding to this. So I have Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, and Doug Ford, who's the Premier of Ontario, which is kind of like a state. It's a province of Canada, the most populous and richest province. Sorry Alberta, but oil's gone bye-bye. And also we have, of course, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and we have, of course, Donald J. Trump, who's the current President of the United States of America. And frankly, I'm unimpressed with all of them, but it's interesting to see the different tone and the different approaches they're taking. In my province, we have at least 2 hospitals now begging the public and industry to supply us with personal protective equipment because we don't have enough, because of a failure of planning and a failure of action for the last 2 months. I've been asking, as people know who've been watching me, for the pandemic stockpile of N95 masks to be opened up and the expired ones to be given to individual frontline staff in emerge and testing centres and ICUs and COVID floors, so we could actually get rubber bands and make them functional. They're now actually looking at doing that. That's after a hospital in Kitchener decided to infect over 50 nurses because they gave their testing nurses surgical masks to wear. The very idea that this ever was surgical mask appropriate is absolutely disgusting. I think it's criminal negligence, and possibly now it's going to end up being criminal negligence with murder. I don't like the fact that our healthcare systems and our governments are being run by a bunch of morons. It's really not appropriate. I would ask you all in all your various countries to consider who you vote for at the next election. Stop voting for billionaires and millionaires who are representing Wall Street, who represent Bombardier, who represent, I'm not sure what Johnson represents, but it certainly isn't my England, but I did leave in 1989. But people who do not represent the heart and soul of the people. Now, I don't like Doug Ford. I don't like him at all. Certainly not a Conservative. But he has done an outstanding job all the way through this crisis. He's been straight, he's been direct, he's been humble, and he's listened to scientists. And above all, for those people who love President Trump, at least our leaders in Canada know what the name of the virus is at this point. Anyway, sit back and enjoy. I will, of course, interject after each speaker and tell you what I think it actually means for us. And I am aware that my Trump people, hi Christine, might be offended, but you shouldn't be offended at critique that's reasonable. Anyway, sit back and enjoy. This is how the Western world's 3 English-speaking countries today, March 23rd, decided to respond to World War C.
Social distancing, physical distancing, is the single best way to keep the people around you safe. What does that mean? It means keeping 2 meters between yourself and someone else. It means avoiding groups. It means staying home as much as possible. If you choose to ignore that advice, if you choose to get together with people or go to crowded places, you're not just putting yourself at risk, you're putting others at risk too. Your elderly relative who's in a senior's home, or your friend with a pre-existing condition, our nurses and doctors on the front lines, our workers stocking shelves at a grocery store. They need you to make the right choices. They need you to do your part. We've all seen the pictures online of people who seem to think they're invincible. Well, you're not. Enough is enough. Go home and stay home. This is what we all need to be doing. And we're going to make sure this happens, whether by educating people more on the risks or by enforcing the rules if that's needed. Nothing that could help is off the table.
Quite stern there, old Justin, and he didn't even need to put blackface on. He gets a lot of welly over in Canada because he's not very dynamic, and he's a capitalist, and he let the left down badly, and the right hate his guts because they don't think he is keen on pumping oil, though he is keen on pumping oil. Anyway, bottom line here is, he's pretty much telling us, folk in Canada land, that our happy life has gone for the duration, and that if we don't obey social distancing, which I think we should be calling physical distancing, he's going to do something. And like I keep saying, listen to these people, listen to what they're saying, listen to how they're saying it. They're not messing around here. This is going to be a total reorganisation of society, the economy, and every facet of life for the next few months.
Well, good afternoon. Today, I'm ordering the mandatory closure of all non-essential workplaces in the province of Ontario. This order will be effective Tuesday, March 24th at 11:59 p.m. for 14 days. The next 36 hours will give non-essential businesses the chance to adapt and prepare. Tomorrow, we will release the list of businesses that are permitted to stay open. We're prepared to extend this order if necessary. This was a very, very tough decision, but it is the right decision. This is not the time for half measures. This decision was not made lightly, and the gravity of this order does not escape me. But as I've said from day one, we will and we must take all steps necessary to slow the spread of COVID-19. The health and safety of every Ontarian must come first, and that's why we're taking these important steps.
Now, bearing in mind Doug Ford's a solid conservative on the right side of conservatism in Canada, you can see the pain and struggle. He's seen the projections of how many of us in Ontario will die, and he's going to do whatever it takes, including overt socialism, to try and keep as many of us alive as possible. And he's been on the money in terms of health all the way through and before COVID-19, and for that he has my respect. Don't agree with a lot of his fiscal policies or a lot of his social policies, but the guy actually appears to care about the lives, the actual lives, compared to the deaths of real people in Ontario. And that's so refreshing in the modern era.
Good evening. The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and this country is not alone. All over the world we're seeing the devastating impact of this invisible killer. And so tonight I want to update you on the latest steps we're taking to fight the disease and what you can do to help. And I want to begin by reminding you why the UK has been taking the approach that we have. Without a huge national effort to halt the growth of this virus, there will come a moment when no health service in the world could possibly cope, because there won't be enough ventilators, enough intensive care beds, enough doctors and nurses. And as we've seen elsewhere in other countries that also have fantastic healthcare systems, that is the moment of real danger. To put it simply, if too many people become seriously unwell at one time, the NHS will be unable to handle it, meaning more people are likely to die, not just from coronavirus, but from other illnesses as well. So it's vital to slow the spread of the disease, because that is the way we reduce the number of people needing hospital treatment at any one time, so we can protect the NHS's ability to cope and save more lives. And that's why we've been asking people to stay at home during this pandemic. And though huge numbers are complying, and I thank you all, the time has now come for us all to do more. From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. Because the critical thing we must do to stop the disease spreading between households, that is why people will only be allowed to leave their home for the following very limited purposes. Shopping for basic necessities as infrequently as possible. One form of exercise a day, for example, a run, walk or cycle, alone or with members of your household, any medical need to provide care or to help a vulnerable person, and travelling to and from work, but only where this is absolutely necessary and cannot be done from home. That's all. These are the only reasons you should leave your home. You should not be meeting friends. If your friends ask you to meet, you should say no. You should not be meeting family members who do not live in your home. You should not be going shopping except for essentials like food and medicine. We will look again in 3 weeks and relax them if the evidence shows we are able to. But at present, there are just no easy options. The way ahead is hard, and it is still true that many lives will, sadly, be lost. I want to thank everyone who is working flat out to beat the virus. Everyone from the supermarket staff to the transport workers to the carers to the nurses and doctors on the front line. But in this fight, we can be in no doubt that each and every one of us is directly enlisted. Each and every one of us is now obliged to join together to halt the spread of this disease, to protect our NHS and to save many, many thousands of lives. And I know that as they have in the past, so many times, the people of this country will rise to that challenge and we will come through it stronger than ever. We will beat the coronavirus and we will beat it together. And therefore, I urge you at this moment of national emergency to stay at home, protect our NHS and save lives. Thank you.
Well, that's pretty strong stuff, eh? Good call to arms, good focusing of the nation on what they need to do over there in the United Kingdom, because they've got real problems in parts of the United Kingdom, the Midlands and in areas of Wales and parts of Scotland, I believe. Still, though, there's not much information coming out. The NHS in London is suffering a huge problem. So he's got it, right? I mean, he knows what the name is. It's coronavirus. He knows that the people are going to die. He knows people are going to die anyway. And he's appealing to people to stop transmission by social, physical distancing to try and limit the exposures and number of cases. Pretty certain stuff. He's come in for a lot of trouble about how he's handled all of this. But in truth, and the reality of this, it's not until about a year or two from now that we're actually able to go back and look at the progression of the disease in different countries and say, that's the point they did it right, that's the point they did it wrong. And of course, it's very human to do that now. And of course, I have no opinion on the President of the United States of America's policies on this, other than the fact, as a registered nurse and as a human being, and as somebody with a vague degree of intelligence, I can't believe this guy. You voted for him, and you still will?
Well, thank you very much, and I see we have fewer people because of the virus problem.
Of course, the virus is called SARS-CoV-2. It's from the coronavirus family, and the disease it causes is called COVID-19.
And we appreciate you being here. And this is getting to be more and more social distancing, and that's fine. So it should be, and it's too bad. We extend our best wishes to the person affected, and we feel sure that he or she will be better very soon.
I certainly hope so as well. Whoever the one person in the United States is that has this, I hope he or she will feel very better soon. And maybe it is time to maybe consider going more and more towards social distancing.
On an urgent relief bill for the millions of American workers and small businesses and large businesses that were badly affected by the medical difficulty that we've had.
Of course, what he's referring to here is the worldwide pandemic caused by SARS-CoV-2 from the coronavirus family that causes COVID-19 disease.
America will again and soon be open for business, very soon, a lot sooner than 3 or 4 months that somebody was suggesting a lot sooner. We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself. We're not going to let the cure be worse than the problem. At the end of the 15-day period, we'll make a decision as to which way we want to go, where we want to go, the timing, and essentially we're referring to the timing of the opening, essentially the opening of our country, because we have it pretty well shut down in order to get rid of this invisible enemy.
Because it's invisible doesn't mean it doesn't exist, Mr. President. It is from the coronavirus family. The virus is SARS-CoV-2 and it causes COVID-19 disease. And the best estimates we have is that it's going to kill approximately 2 to 12 million Americans before Christmas. So it is somewhat significant. But, you know, Wall Street.
Guidelines when you put out. Have any of the doctors on your team told you that's the right path to pursue?
We spoke to them today, and I was telling them that we have two things to look for. Don't forget the doctors. If it were up to the doctors, they may say, let's keep it shut down. Let's shut down the entire world, because, again, you're up to almost 150 countries. So let's shut down the entire world, and when we shut it down, that would be wonderful. And let's keep it shut for a couple of years. You know, you can't do that. And you can't do that with a country, especially the #1 economy anywhere in the world, by far. #1 economy in the world, you can't do that. Because, well, it causes bigger problems than the original. That's why I talk about the cure being worse than the problem. We can't have the cure be worse than the problem. But what we have done, so this is not retracing, this isn't anything. We've done it really well, because this 2-week period has been good. And I'm not saying it ends at that time. You know, we have another 7 days or so.
To be honest with you, you're probably going to need more than 21 days, however great you are as a president, however great America is. It's just dismissing the magnitude of the deaths and the destruction that's going to come from this. And frankly, it's quite appalling. I'm not quite sure why he thinks talking to the doctors today is appropriate. I would like him, and I would like every leader of every country, to be talking to scientists and doctors and epidemiologists and virologists pretty much every day, including Sundays. I think that's kind of appropriate, but what do I know?
We may quarantine, we will be quarantining many people in these areas. There are other areas that just aren't affected, or they're affected very little. And why would we close down 100% of the country? There are areas within New York where New York will be open, but there are areas within New York. Remember this, New York has the New York Stock Exchange. It has NASDAQ. It has the exchanges.
It does have Wall Street, and it does have NASDAQ, and it has the other exchanges, and that's very, very true. It also has quite a few million Americans in it, and some of them, as we speak, as he was speaking, are dying or have died from COVID-19. So I think it's a little unrealistic to think that you can take this and say, we'll open up Wall Street and we'll surround it by the army, and if he is saying that, and we'll keep the Bronx under quarantine. I'm not quite sure what he thinks this is, or what is happening in his own country, but clearly he's not informed about how viruses work and how they transmit and the effects of them on human beings. And I'm really kind of stunned at his apparent lack of basic education at this point on epidemiology. He really at this point should be well informed about how viruses transmit and how quarantine can be effective and how it can be counterproductive. Of course, I know a lot of you out there, the right wingers, are saying, yeah, he's right, the cure can't be worse than the disease. Well, no, it can't be. But if you don't cure this disease, there will be no recovery. Can you understand that? It's like saying it costs too much money to fight COVID-19, but if you don't fight it and stop the transmission, what's the end point here? Millions dead, tens of millions dead, large parts of the United States destroyed economically forever. But as long as Wall Street's okay and the Trump Tower's intact, hey, everything's groovy, man. It's really flabbergasting. The whole speech, he really goes on and on and on about how great he is and how a great job he's doing. And it's not about him, right? It's about people. People he's the president of. So I find it disturbing. I'm sorry, but I do.
But we can do, what I'm saying basically is that we can do two things simultaneously. and we've had this incredible learning period. Plus, people have been in a period and they won't be calling, oh gee, because I've got many, many people that now come to me and say, we get it. We think we can really do it now and do it while we're open. So at some point, we'll be setting some guidelines, we'll be setting some date lines, and we'll be announcing them in the not too distant future.
There you have it. He's going to open up America in parts or whole in the very near future. Hold him to that. You should also hold him to the fact that he said America had 15 cases and it wouldn't have any more than 15, and he was going to get rid of the 15 cases. All the way through this, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has misinformed and said mistruths about this whole disease. And today, large areas of America are having a massive problem because of lack of strategic planning from the White House. And he's the leader. I blame him.
Many of the doctors on your team endorsed easing the federal guidelines.
Not endorsed. We talked together, and I think they're okay with it, and I'm okay with it. But this could be a much bigger problem. This could create a much bigger problem than the problem that you start off with.
I'm glad the doctors talked to him for advice on science and biology, but the problem here is I don't think he quite understands. There is no economic reason to promote the economy over American lives, certainly not on the scale that we're facing. It's inexcusable to even pretend or to actually seem to believe that the economy is more important in the short term than saving American lives, especially on the scale that the projections are showing of death.
Probably more death from that than anything that we're talking about with respect to the virus.
I highly doubt it. If you organise your economy properly and use debt appropriately and set up services appropriately to feed the poor and house the homeless and to make sure workers aren't suffering like everybody else in the Western world is doing, President Trump, there will be no more deaths because of the COVID-19 disease effect on the economy. The priority here is COVID-19, not Wall Street. It will be once we've defeated COVID-19, and I have no problem with that, but in the here and now, you need total government control and command structure of all aspects of the economy to fight a World War C. This is not a minor annoyance that has caused the Dow to drop and making you look bad in a presidential year. I'm really not understanding how he's actually able to stand there and get away with such statements and people are just walking out. What has he to say of any benefit to anybody that's listening?
But we're getting fairly close to coming up with a date, and it's a much shorter period of time than I've been hearing the news report. And I think everybody should be happy with that.
If you can open this in 7 days or under, President Trump, and have no further deaths in the United States of America, I think you should get the Nobel Prize for Biology. The reason the media is saying months is because it's going to take months. Okay? That's why every other Western leader understands 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then we're reassessing. Nobody's making false promises based upon wishful thinking. Clicking your heels together and wishing the Dow goes to 30,000 in a week's time isn't an effective way to lead a country in the middle of a global pandemic.
It's less convenient. Before you walk and you hop in the subway and you grab the handle and you go down to wherever you're going on Wall Street and you do all sorts of things and you go in and you open the doors going into your great buildings or into the exchanges, and now you're not going to have to maybe think about doing that, or you're going to think about doing it a different way. No, there are many trade-offs. It's a different life, and maybe it'll remain that way, frankly, after the invisible scourge is gone. Maybe it's going to stay that way. Not a bad thing to stay that way.
Yeah, the invisible scourge, aka SARS-CoV-2, causing the COVID-19 disease from the coronavirus family. It's breathtaking, his lack of understanding of virus transmission, nor the importance of physical distancing. It's just breathtaking.
We're seeing an increase of cases in Latin America, in the Middle East,
It's true.
in
Latin
some places in Asia. Are you considering a new round of travel ban?
No, we're not really. Something like that could happen, I guess, but we're not really. They thought we were going to have bans within the United States. We didn't do that. We're not going to have that.
Thank goodness he's not going to put any more travel bans in place. Pretty much the entire world shut down. Pretty much there's no flights flying anywhere. But no, it doesn't matter how bad this gets in South America. Donald Trump hasn't even discussed travel bans from new countries that are affected. Wow. Anyway, I know this has offended the Trumpites out there, and it should offend you. It should offend you that this gentleman on this issue is not being at all a great leader, is he? And he's certainly not making America great, quite the opposite. Anyway, that's all from me, and I will let Admiral Adama finish. Stay safe out there. Remember, in a pandemic, tomorrow will always be worse than today until we get over the peak. And the peak is not 7 days away. I really, really wish it was. It's going to be months. Dig in, settle down, relax. Toodles.
You've trained for this. You're ready for this. Stand to your duties. Trust your fellow shipmates, and we'll all get through this.
That was a Bad Terrier 2020 production.